share kind of a cool ongoing testimony that's been going on for a while. I've shared it in here before. I think I shared it recently in the last month and a half. And it has to do with a story that started when I was really little. And I had a little wart on the bottom of my foot. How many have heard that story before? Quite a few of you. Let me share the short version because it connects to an email that I got this week. I had a little wart on the bottom of my foot. I think I was like 6 or 7. And my mom, it was really painful for walking on it and so on. And so my mom just told me, son, every morning when you put your shoes on, look at your wart. When you put your socks and shoes on, look at your wart and say grace to it. Just say grace, just grace. So I did that. Well, I did that for about 2 weeks. Well, it fell off after 2 weeks. It just popped out, and I never had a problem with it again. Okay. You can clap. It's all right. And so I've shared that testimony over the years, and this was about probably 8 or 9 years ago. It was after a meeting, and a dad brought his daughter up. It was actually in the Nashville area, and his daughter was 12 years old. She was a beautiful ballerina girl, just was almost like a poster child for ballet. And her hands were covered in warts. I counted about 15 to 20 per hand. And her hands were really red because they're so tender and very sensitive. They just hurt, very, very uncomfortable. They had done everything medically possible they knew to do. They froze them, they did chemical stuff, they cut them off, they just did all kinds of stuff, and they kept coming back. And I think he said it actually made it worse. It just it was more painful. And so we prayed over her, and nothing happened on the spot. I prayed for her a couple times, and then I just told her that story of, my wife texted me. Let me find out what she has to say. Hello, love. She's camping right now up there. Where was I at? Thank you. So whenever my wife comes to mind, everything else just kind of goes. It's true. It's totally true. Warts, 12-year-old. There we go. Okay. And so we prayed for her, nothing happened, and I told her about the story when I was little. I said grace, and I told her the whole story, and I said, I want you to just every morning when you get, every time, honestly, every day, look at your hands and say grace to these hands. And there's actually a verse I shared with her that I don't remember if someone told me I came across it. It doesn't matter. It's in Zechariah, and we're going to read it in just a minute because it's in the middle of this testimony. There's this verse in there about saying grace, grace, grace to it. And so I told her to do that. Well, I got an email about a month later, and in the email was 3 or 4 paragraphs and then a bunch of pictures, or a couple pictures. So I scrolled down and looked at the pictures right away. Well, it was a picture of this 12-year-old girl's hand. Within a month, all the warts had disappeared, and they were covered. And then I went back and read the email, and it just showed my daughter really took it to heart. She said grace to her hands every day, and over the course of a month, they were all gone. So it was really cool. Well, we were sharing in staff, and Chris Gore was sharing some breakthrough that he was seeing. I mean, it was just kind of this fun, grace to any type of growth. Well, I got this email this week, and I want to read it to you. It says, several months ago, I noticed a growth, keratosis, on my lower left eyelid. Not pretty. It's expensive and a wee bit dangerous to have such an item cut off. So can you imagine a knife on your, yikes. So I began praying and speaking healing over it. I wanted it to drop off. It seemed as if it was growing. So when a friend came to town the weekend of May 31st, we both went to the healing rooms. Just as my name was called, the fire alarm went off at Bethel, and we all had to exit. I'm sure you heard about the squirrel who got into the wires in Bethel's backyard. I don't know if you guys were aware, but May 31st, there was a fire on the back side of the property here where a squirrel got into a transformer and it blew up and started a fire. So that was that day. So they exited the building. Well, the healing room just moved became healing outside, not healing room, healing outside. And the fire department was like, no, you guys have to leave the property. The healing moving room, just. Well, I determined not to leave until I got prayer. So in the breezeway, just right out here, 2 gals offered to pray over my eye. One of the gals, Barb, sent I should start just blessing my eye. A week passed, and I decided to try the healing rooms again. Nada. Then Sunday evening, June 8th, Eric had a word of knowledge about growths on bodies. He shared the story, the one I shared when I was little, of saying grace to it. So I got prayer that evening, nada. But 2 days later, on June 10th, I remembered to look up a scripture Eric had also shared from Zechariah to encourage us to pray grace over these growths. Here's the verse. What are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, you will become a plain, and he will bring forth the top stones with shout of grace, grace to it. So it's about a mountain saying grace to that mountain to become flat. Well, these little warts and tumors, they're like a little mountain. That was my logic. And so say grace to it. So that was the verse. So with Barb's words in me from that day on the breezeway to bless my eye, to Eric's words, grace, grace, I did this every morning for the past 2 weeks. Yesterday, I got this email earlier this week. Yesterday, when I awoke, I saw a dark spot on my eyelid. I thought, oh no, what now what? When I looked closer, I gasped. It was a scab, the growth completely gone. I was so tempted to pull the scab off. You learn that as a little child, never pull the scab off. Well, today the scab is gone and my eyelid is all caps, so beautiful. Gone, gone, gone. I'm ecstatic. So if you have any type of little mountain on your body, just say grace to it. All right? Just say grace, grace, grace to it.